Welcome back. This is still the Polity reaching you live from the Abuja studios of Kaftan Television. Like we said before the break, we will be heading into issues around the PDP, like you saw with that report, we should probably be starting with. I've been joined in the studio now by the head of new media department of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council. He is Ilemona Onoja. He speaks to me today about issues around the PDP, controversies, policies, and basically all things PDP as the race to the 2023 elections continue. Welcome to the program. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's start from the report there. I think people tend to see disagreements as issues, but I think as politicians you feel is regular. But let's speak about the Ogun State issue there. What's going on? The candidate said, or the aspirant, it's not official yet, he said that it happened in the past where there was infighting and it led to some, what's the word, no assurance going forward, and it affected the PDP. Is that what we're saying again?
I think that there are fundamental differences between where we are now in Ogun State and what had happened in the past. In the past, we had the sort of intractable differences where even there was no basis, there were no doors left open for negotiation, for reconciliation, and for a working together, so to speak, an amalgamation of interests. At this time, as you can see from that report, that door is open. People must realize that the foundation for politics is disagreement. It is the foundation of all politics. It is essentially us saying we want to achieve a destination, want to achieve a goal, but my way is better than your way. That's the foundation for all politics, right? Where there's a difference in the manner of politicking is the ability to pursue aspirations as much as possible within the framework of what is right and what is legal. And then as much as possible also to ensure that continually there's the pursuit of the amalgamation of interests, not just within the political party, but within the country, and then involving the country and other countries in the Committee of Nations. It is that constant pursuit for the achievement of the best interests of the highest number of people. That is what politics is all about, right? Where we are in Ogun State it's a continuation on some levels of the disagreement that has perennially existed between Honorable Adi Adebutu and then the faction led by the late Senator Burji Kashamu, where there's always been battle for the control of the soul and the structure of the party in the state. But if we remember, unfortunately, Senator Kashamu passed away, I think it was 2 years ago. And even before he passed away, he had communicated to several leaders of the party a desire and a determination to ensure that Ogun PDP was reunited, even as they pursued competing interests. It is the reason why you would see Otumba Segun speak in a conciliatory manner. He says, yes, we will pursue the ambition to a conclusion as allowed by the provisions of the law, but we are not here to fight. We're here to demonstrate two things: a commitment to the party on the one hand, and a commitment to the cause of Ogun State, using the party as a vehicle for the achievement of our communal aspirations, so to speak. So we're in a better place than we used to be. One thing that, you know, one has to point out, and we're hoping that this will be the end of the, you know, when the cases come to a close, that this will be the end of the crisis. Okowa'S typically over the years reverted from being a PDP state, not because the people do not have a desire for the party. It is more it has more been an inability in the past to find a common resolve, to find a common working ground that accommodates everybody. We don't have that problem now. I was the secretariat for the National Reconciliation and Strategy Committee of the party led by Dr. Abaka Bukola Saraki, my boss. And over the course of 2 years, between 2019 and early on this year, we were able to bring people closer in terms of finding that working ground. So yeah, while they're pursuing all these ambitions, right, and all these interests, we are aware that there is a resolve, that once there's a logical conclusion, everybody must work together. That once there's a conclusion, a judicial conclusion, everybody must work together to deliver the success of the party at the polls. It happens
the way Otumba Shomi spoke of there. Is the PDP not weakened in that respect? In the being that the aspirants, like he said, should continue as though everything is okay. If he's campaigning and Adebutu is campaigning and the other aspirants are campaigning, isn't that, you know,
everybody's campaigning for the PDP?
So when they come together,
everybody's campaigning for the PDP. Every single person.
But for themselves, within the PDP.
Everybody's campaigning, but also with the recognition that anybody that of the three of them that emerges is better than the APC candidate, who is the current governor of Ogun State. There is that common understanding that everybody amongst the three of them who eventually emerges by judicial pronouncement is a much better option, is a much better opportunity, will deliver much better governance than what Ogun has experienced over the last 12 years. First 8 years of Governor Ibikunle Amosun, and then 4 years of the current governor, Dapo Abiodun, which has been abysmal. In many respects, there are many similarities between the desire for a return of the PDP in Ogun State and the desire that was manifested in Osun for so long before it was actualized on Sunday. There are many fundamentals that are so similar, where the people are groaning under more than a decade of terrible governance and maladministration, where the resources of the people are pilfered willy-nilly, where the aspirations of the people are truncated on the altar of personal aggrandizement and the ego of the people who have misgoverned the state so badly. So once you take all these things into consideration, we realize that, yes, while we have that going on, what you have is a competition of interest within the party, where everybody is a demonstration of a commitment to the cause of, we must bring an end to the 12 years where APC has badly misled us. And we expect that over the course of the next few days, like Otumba Shomi has said, that there will be a termination with a judicial pronouncement at the highest levels, and that everybody then will be able to work together, accommodate each other, and make the progress that is required.
All right, that's fair enough. Now moving further to other issues, I'd like your comments, or perhaps response, since you're here, on some comments by the APC presidential candidates towards or about your candidate, saying that he has been running and he should, retire. And he also made other comments about, well, actually, he did not mention names, but he said that it would be an embarrassment or a disgrace to mention the name, but I think we can figure out who he was talking about. So I'd like your response to that. Are we expecting any of such from, the PDP? Because is this going to go unanswered? Or
I'll tell you certain things. Why will a presidential candidate of a political party that is best placed to win the 2023 presidential elections and then deliver on the yearnings and aspirations of the Nigerian people, a presidential candidate who has a track record of delivery in office as Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and then as Chairman of the National Economic Council, of where there is a variable verifiable track record of improving the lots of the Nigerians, of creating millions of jobs, of opening whole new sectors of the Nigerian economy, of a dedication to duty, why would that person step down? It doesn't make any sort of sense. And that statement is in keeping with the campaign style of the APC. What the APC candidate should be telling us, right? Very simply, APC was elected into office in 2015. This is what the APC has done to improve the lives, welfare, and well-being of Nigerians. These are the outcomes, right? And this is what we will do to maintain those outcomes. That's all the APC candidate should be telling us. An election is a referendum on the ruling party. You should be telling us how you've improved our lives. But he doesn't have that to say. He can't say that because they've worsened our lives. Nigerians are significantly poorer than we were before the APC came into office. Nigeria is significantly poorer than we were before the APC came into office. We've lost millions of jobs. Nigeria is significantly unsafer than we were before the APC came into office. Our children have less access to education. Our children, our old, have less access to healthcare. Our farms are significantly more unproductive. We're experiencing record levels of oil theft, never before seen in the history of our country. We're getting to a place where the NNPC is telling us that they've gone from contributing $3 billion to the nation's coffers to contributing $0 at all. All this year, NNPC hasn't made a single contribution to the government's coffers. We have 133 million people living in multi-dimensional poverty. Let me tell you something. If your business was worth 500 million naira in the year 2014, without you making any bad decision, without you making any errors of judgment, that business is probably worth 600,000. Okay, so before I go that business, if it was worth 500 million naira in 2014, that was $2.6 million. Yeah, that business now, without you making any bad decisions, is worth less than $600,000. Without you
but the APC has said no, that is
bad decisions, we will come there. We will come there. My point being that the APC candidate is not running on a track record. There is no track record to run on. There's none. He tries to claim Lagos as evidence of delivery in the past. Lagos has for several years been classified one of the worst cities to live in across the world. When we take these things into consideration, you will see why he doesn't want to get into a contest of ideas, into a debate of ideas with you. And he will rather distract us with hot air and smoke, so that rather than telling us, rather than having discussions around how to build the economy, rather than having discussions about how to restructure the country for optimum performance, rather than having conversations about how to create jobs, he tells those sorts of stories, those sorts of distractive narratives, so that we can't and we don't and we won't focus on what is substantive, which is that his party has significantly worsened the lives, welfare, well-being of all Nigerian people, and that his promises to continue on the legacies of President Muhammadu Buhari are a threat to our lives. This is a party of economic terrorists and job creation brigands who have come here and worsened our lives. They should really, in a normal country, they wouldn't even be in the frame of the conversation for who wins the presidential elections next year.
But what's your reply to them? Let me take a quote from the APC publicity director. He says, "I am happy the NBS did not say it is the APC that impoverished Nigerians. this poverty has taken control of Nigeria is as a result of the misrule of the PDP for 16 years. This is a common rhetoric we get from the APC members.
What you will get, what this is a party that is unable to take responsibility for anything at all. They refuse to take responsibility. And the numbers don't lie. On the 1st of February 2015, President Muhammadu Buhari, speaking at the Chatham House, said that Nigeria had grown on the average 7% per annum between 1999 and 2015. His party has not been able to deliver more than 3% growth since then, since 2015. Unemployment, 9%. Unemployment is 33% at the moment. Youth unemployment, 35%. No, youth unemployment, 52 or 51%. If we look at the GDP, they inherited a country with the economy that was in excess of $500 billion. What is the size of the economy now? The economy has shrunk. We're looking at, we used to drive from Abuja to Kaduna for fun, to just go visit people and come back. Can you do that now? This country, the only economy, the only sector of the Nigerian economy that is thriving at the moment is an illegal sector. It is crime and criminality. It is kidnapping, terrorism, and brigandage. That is the only sector of the Nigerian economy that is thriving. That is the only sector of the... And then somebody who... If there's anybody who shouldn't be speaking in this election, it is the APs. And numbers don't lie. People do. Is he waiting for a government agency to come out and say, oh, it is the APC's fault? That is not within the remit of the MBS. The MBS will just give you the numbers as they turn up. It is the remit of the Nigerian people to say, you have worsened their lives. And the Nigerian people are saying, you have worsened our lives. It really is that simple. So expecting that, oh, because the MBS didn't put APC's name, my goodness, was he not embarrassed to have made that statement?
Well, that's interesting. Now, let's talk about, now that we're on the topic, before we move on to other issues, developments within the PDP, I'd like to get some clarification on Atiku Abubakar's plan for the economy. There's a common, I wouldn't call it a misconception. You have to do that work about his plan to, rescue, as he says, recover the economy. And a lot of people are likening it to him removing all responsibility from the government and basically gifting the country to his friends, as they say. So I'd like some clarification on the economic policies, especially as regards issues around privatization, PPP. Give us some clarity on it. Let's hear how it actually is meant to be without any of the add-ons that we get.
Our position in the Atiku campaign organization is very simple. Government has no business in business. It's really that simple. Government's role...
Do people take offense to that?
Government's role is very simple. It is regulatory. And over the course of our existence, we have seen a surfeit of evidence to this fact. There are how many refineries in the country? How many work? All the government held assets, how many work? Vice President Atiku Abubakar, as Vice President, he was one of the forerunners for the implementation of a telecommunications sector reform that resulted in where we are today, where we have all sorts of mobile phones, where we have internet connectivity and the levels of internet penetration that we have, where we're able to live, trade, and do business, find love, exist on the interwebs and all of that. He was one of the forerunners of that. That fundamentally changed our lives, opened our country up to the world, and brought millions of dollars in investment and created millions of jobs. One of the forerunners of that. But I'll give you an example. At the time, there was an insistence that government must own a telecommunications license. And so a license was issued to NITEL, then as MTEL, to continue operations. Where is MTEL today? Where is it? It was bogged down by inefficiency. It was bogged down by incompetence. It was bogged down by an inability to deliver. all the other private sector companies that received licenses are thriving today, to this day. I'll give you another example. In 2019, as the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, he came out with the position that we no longer can afford to run NNPC at the levels of inefficiency that see us put billions of dollars in the government enterprise with nothing to show in terms of results. Between then and now, the APC that condemned and criticized that position has come to that realization. How many billions of dollars later? Our simple position is that we want a market-driven, private sector-led economy where the innovation and the creativity of our people is able to deploy resources to create jobs in sectors that the people need. How many jobs can government create? How many? At what cost? But on the other hand, leave the private sector to grow. It will create jobs. And then what will you do? You will earn taxes. And then from the taxes, you will be able to deliver services. I'll give you another example. 2019, or in 2018, government was trying to award a contract for the delivery of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. That contract was awarded in 2016, I think it was. It ought to have been delivered by 2018. We're in 2022, going into 2023. The road construction has not been completed. Our simple proposition is that on some certain critical infrastructure like that, invite private sector equity, right? That is deployed towards the creation, the construction of the asset quicker, more efficiently, and at a better quality. That will then ensure that because private sector equity has been deployed, the government equity, the government funding can be rechanneled towards education, towards health care, towards social services. In the knowledge that if you educate your people and you equip them and you give them the skills that are required, they will be employed by the private sector. Their creativity will be deployed to create jobs and create wealth. That is how you grow a country. All
right. I just quickly respond to two issues that usually come up whenever this is put out. You mentioned the government-owned or the government-run enterprises and how they don't function. Some persons wonder, why not fix that? Why isn't the Atiku administration or government planning to make government running better?
I'll give you an example. The Kaduna refinery has received turnaround maintenance every year in the budget since 2015. 2016, budgeting for turnaround maintenance. 2017, budgeting for turnaround maintenance. 2018, budgeting for turnaround maintenance. In this period of time, it has not refined a single barrel of crude oil. There are people there who have done their entire careers, have retired, and are receiving pension, and they have never seen the Kaduna refinery refine a single barrel of crude oil. Why are you spending all that money? Will a private sector enterprise have kept those people employed? But government is there wasting money, quite literally taking the money that could have gone to education, quite literally taking the money that could have gone to health to service a non-functional asset.
No, but people say that is a result of that government, not governments in general.
It is government as a whole. That refinery started failing during the military. It went from one military regime to another as a failed asset. Came to the PDP, which, tried, deployed resources. It barely functioned. Why? Instead, privatize the asset. Let me tell you something. If you're bleeding, having had an accident, first cause of anything is what? Stop the bleeding. Before you begin to do any other treatment, stop the bleeding. Is it not? Nigeria is bleeding in these places. A lot of these government assets are simply bleeding us. Stop the bleeding. The private sector has shown the creativity and the knowledge, the deployment of skills to be able to effectively manage certain things in your economy. Leave it to the private sector.
All right, let's talk about a fear in terms of prices. People, once an average person hears privatization, they think increased prices. The average person being unable to pay for services. Someone gave an instance of having to do tests in the government hospital, and for some reason he couldn't do one of those tests in the hospital and it was sent out, and the cost of that one test outside, you know, was more than all the ones he did within the public hospital combined. And so there is that fear, which we've seen a lot of people show, that things are going to get costly, more expensive.
Okay, so
how do you allay those fears?
Okay, so you need to, if you hear me in the course of my conversation, I'm very specific. Get government out of business. Yeah? Put government in the social services where government is important. So put government in education. So that the money that you were using to service those other business interests is redeployed towards servicing the cost of education to bring it within the reach of the common man. Right? So that you have good quality public sector education available to the indigent primarily, but also available to everybody who wants to access it. And the people who feel more comfortable can go and pay for private sector education. Quite literally. Right? It's the same thing with healthcare. Take the money that we use to pay for fuel subsidies. 4 trillion naira this year, I think. Yeah. 6 trillion naira or more next year. Take it out. Put it in your healthcare systems. Right? Build yourself the primary healthcare centers that you need that actually cater to the bulk of our healthcare challenges across all the wards in the country. That's where you should go. Then take it into secondary, put that money into secondary and then tertiary healthcare. When you do so, you give people the cheaper alternative, right? So that they can go to government establishments knowing that this alternative will be effective. But government doesn't yet have the money to pay our doctors. Government doesn't yet have the money to pay our teachers. Government doesn't yet have the money to pay our primary health care staff, because we're putting that money into NNPC, that is a non-functional government asset, because we're putting that money into fuel subsidies that favor the rich and not the poor. Take it out. Take it out. Let the market determine the price of our fuel. And if I know that a number of things will happen, I have the businesses to create my jobs that give me the cost of living that from which I'm able to earn to meet my daily needs and pay my bills. But I have also access to cheap education for my children, or to cheaper education for my children. I have access to cheap health care for my family, for my mother, my father. Where will I go? Of course I will go there. Plus, it is time to also recognize that we need to take our healthcare insurance more seriously as a country. It was the PDP government that set up the National Health Insurance Scheme. Right? Simply, quite simply, if we expand that scheme to accommodate, and it is there in the pathway to recovery, my covenant with Nigerians, the document, the manifesto document of the presidential candidate of the PDP, the intention to expand the healthcare insurance scheme. People pay a token sum of money and are able to accommodate or to access health care provided by government, subsidized by government. That is what we should be subsidizing. Right. Those are the things that we should be subsidizing. These are the plans. It's one of the biggest problems of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is this insistence that the Nigerian people have foisted upon ourselves that Nigeria is different. And so principles of governance won't work here. And so principles of economics won't work here. And so known principles of existence won't work here. We tell ourselves that lie. But these things that the PDP seeks to implement are working in other places with success and have worked in Nigeria with relative success. We need to expand the frontiers so that it accommodates everybody and it improves the life and welfare of the common man. That's simply, in a nutshell, the objective, the goal of the People's Democratic Party.
It's good to hear those clarifications. Now let's talk about, I think, one of the recent happenings within the party, the inauguration of the Osun State Governor, Governor Ademola Adeleke. I'd like to get your thoughts on how has that influenced or impacted the campaigns generally. You know, the Southwest has been said to be the stronghold of the ruling party, the ruling party's candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and a lot of and for the PDP to, you know, get a victory within that region leading up to the 2023 is meant to be something significant. But now that he has been inaugurated, what are your you know, thoughts about how, you know, the administration will go? Let's talk about what has happened already: sacking of 12,000 workers, dethroning of monarchs, and then we have the State Assembly challenging him, or a portion of the State Assembly challenging him on the changes of the name of the state, the slogan, and so on and so forth. And also the fact that during this inauguration, one, we might say, key person was missing, although perhaps it was expected. The PDP has only one other Southwest governor, that is Governor Makinde of Oyo State, and he wasn't there. Does it mean that the Southwest is not one? What are your thoughts generally about the Adeleke administration?
Very quickly. I'm trying to put my words together. Very quickly. The inauguration of Governor Adeleke as Governor of Osun State is coming 4 years late. He was the PDP and its candidate in the 2018 election was robbed. There was a stolen mandate that was clandestinely, no, it wasn't clandestine, it was very brazenly stolen from the candidate and from the party. What you're seeing now is a determination of the people to recover their state from the people who stole their state from them. That's what you're seeing. The Osun State is in the way it is played out is a microcosm of the way Nigeria is now, and the evidence that we're seeing, the demonstration of commitment that the Nigerian people have, that they must recover their state next year, their country next year. Governor Adeleke won this election 4 years ago. He won it again just to prove to everybody that he indeed won it 4 years ago. Now, having done that, having won the elections in July, and having lost, Governor Oyetola having lost, immediately sought to burden the state with bad decisions that will make it more difficult for Governor Adeleke to deliver on the yearning and aspirations of Nigerian people. I'll give you one example. Osun State did not employ up to 12,000 people between 2018 and July 2022. It didn't employ 12,000 people. Suddenly, having lost the elections, he employs 12,000 people. Monarchs were enthroned without respect or regard for due process and for the provisions of Osun State laws to that effect. Right? Salaries were I mean, all sorts of things. Loans were taken without recourse to the state House of Assembly or to due process. And these things simply just couldn't. I mean, even with the order to freeze the account, up until Saturday, the day before the inauguration, all sorts of fictitious withdrawals were being made from the state accounts. Surely these things cannot continue. Somebody had to put a stop to them. And a governor who had been elected by the people to bring light to their darkness, to recover them, to recover their state from this place where it had been captured and locked up as an appendage to a few politicians in the Southwest, particularly the candidate of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, where it was an appendage that they could play with, a toy that they could deal with in any manner they chose. Somebody had to put a stop to it. This is exactly what the governor was elected to do, to put a stop to these sorts of things. Now, with the issue of the appellation, State of Osun, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is clear. There's a particular way states are called. But because the APC doesn't have the capacity, because it doesn't have the ability to deliver, it follows smoke screens such as this, things that make no sense, no impact on the people. Makes no impact. So he went and passed a law in the State House of Assembly calling itself the State of Osun. That there's a judgment of the Federal High Court that declares that that law is illegal, null and void. Yet the state went ahead in flagrant disregard of the judgment of the Federal High Court. Now, somebody comes and obeys the law and you're shouting. It tells you what has been going on in the state for the last 4 years or the last 12 years. It tells you what has been going on in the country. This is, at the state level, evidence of the sort of disregard that the federal government under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari has had for the judiciary. That's the evidence right there.
But do you see problems erupting from this? If the assembly is already, countering the governor, how do you see his 4 years?
I mean, the assembly has set itself up with the assembly has set itself up with the judiciary. There is like I said, there is a judgment of the Federal High Court subsisting, has never been appealed, has never been overruled, has never been overturned, of the Federal High Court. The governor is just obeying the judgment of the Federal High Court.
Yeah, but the question now is, do you sense a friction that might last for a period? It
will last for 4 years. The tenure of most of the members of the APC in the State House of Assembly is over anyway. Most of them are not going to get re-elected. A lot of them didn't get their tickets for re-election in the first place. And the Osun people are determined that these brigands, these terrorists, will not come back and be in their legislature, will not be their representatives anymore. They will all be kicked out next year. And then a legislature that is representative of the wills and the aspirations of the people at the state level, at the national level, will be elected. It will come. What we have seen is the determination of the Nigerian people that this plague that has befallen us thus far and no further. That's what we have seen.
All right, I think that's fair enough. Now, let's move over to...
we spoke about Governor Makinde being absent. I don't know why Governor Makinde was absent, and there are a lot of people within the party who are disappointed.
He also wasn't around during the
but then again, he also wasn't around during the elections. And if I remember correctly, his deputy governor had made a late appearance because he was supposedly out of the country at the time. But what is important? What is important is the people who are registered to vote and the people who voted. What is important in the context of the larger conversation is the people who are registered to vote, the 94 million people who are registered to vote, who have demonstrated a commitment to coming out and giving their mandate to a party that has their best interests at heart, PDP. And so while, we're doing the explorations within the party to have the conversations that are necessary to make sure that we elect, to make sure that we go into the election as one united house, one indivisible house, to win as overwhelmingly as possible. We're also having the conversations with the Nigerian people, with the 94 million registered voters, with all 200 million of us in the country, to say this is the reason why they should vote for the People's Democratic Party. And they're receiving that message very well. That message is resounding in the north, in the east, in the west, and the south, and we are very confident that by this time next year, we'll have a new government at the helm of powers, and that almost immediately we'll start seeing an improvement in our lives, welfare and well-being. We have that confidence. So yes, while there are political concerns about Governor Makinde's absence, just like we went to the Osun people before the elections and got their votes and secured their votes and secured their mandates, we intend to do the same thing at the national. We've gotten to a place where we consider some of these things to be distractions. There is an urgent task to recover this country from the people who have held it captive over the course of the last 7.5 years. There's a very urgent task to do so. And we're speaking to the people who have the power to do so, the 94 million registered voters in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We're asking them to come out and cast their ballots in support of our candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and to do what is necessary to ensure that he wins the election, and then thereafter hold him accountable to make sure that he delivers on his promises, the promises that he made before the election. And so we're doing that. While there is still a door to negotiation and reconciliation open, that door must never be closed. While that door is still open, we're doing what is necessary to secure the mandate of the Nigerian people, in the belief that you can walk and talk at the same time. You can walk and chew gum at the same time, and we're doing both.
All right. But I'd like to take you back to an analogy you've made here. If you are bleeding or if you're in an accident, you stop the bleeding first. We're heading now into the issue of the G5 governors. You mentioned, or you refer to some of it as distractions. Well, is that really the case? The issue now is we're talking about 5 governors. I'm sure before primaries and perhaps even before or after the start of the second tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari, calculations must have already been ongoing that the PDP has this number of states, the PDP has this, and so on and so forth. So with all the calculations that must have been made, we have 5 governors now. We had former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshiomhole, saying by his own calculations that the APC has about 23, the PDP has, he removed the 5 governors, and he said that is what the PDP has, and he removed ABGA, saying the PDP has about 7 or 6. So that being said, when you say you can walk and talk, is that really the case, or is this a case of bleeding that has not been stopped? My
problem with a lot of people who do political analysis, and my problem with people who, like Governor Adams Oshiomhole, who have a mischievous intention, is that we don't learn from history because we fail to teach it, we fail to learn from it. Only in 2015, just the day before yesterday, right? Only in 2015, the PDP had an overwhelming number of governors and still lost the presidential elections. And still lost. Even after the PDP lost 5 governors, or, well, the number of governors it did, it still had more governors than the APC. Did it not lose the presidential election? It did. People are refusing to pay attention. And I like that. I like the fact that they're refusing to pay attention. Because as long as they're not paying attention, they wouldn't do what is necessary to stop us from winning this election. Already there's a moving train that is unstoppable. Already the will and the determination of the Nigerian people to kick the APC out is unstoppable. But they're there and they're deluding themselves, a delusional bunch of people, and are deluding themselves and are lying to themselves. And so that's why they do all such funny calculations. Again, I would say, as important as the governors are to the functioning of this party or that party as an effective political machinery, as important as they are, and nobody says they are not important, far be it from me, these are men that have risen at least this far to the peak of their political careers, and for whom I have a lot of respect for individually and personally. But the most important people, remember that number, 94 million registered Nigerians who are registered to vote.
All right.
It is those people that get you into office. It's not a governor.
You know, I've spoken to a number of PDP members, and they say basically what you're saying now. But it seems a little bit similar to what we're saying from the Labour Party supporters and members whenever they're told, you know, you can't win, you don't have structure. And they say the people are the structure, we're talking to the people. And then you usually see...
There's a difference.
Yes, that's what I'd like to get right now.
There's a difference. The preparation of the People's Democratic Party, right, recognizes an ability to deliver from word all the way up. Labour Party, there are 109 senatorial districts in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, right? 109 senatorial districts, 369 House of Reps, 369 federal constituencies. PDP has 109 senatorial candidates. APC has 108. right? Labour Party 80. Already, it does not have the majority that is required to pursue the legislative reforms that you require to win, to improve the lives and welfare of the Nigerian people. Already does not have that majority. Already. The Labour Party is absent in quite a number of parties, in quite a number of states, localities across the country. And I do not like discussing the Labour Party because it's, for a number of reasons, I do not like discuss. For what it is worth, I prefer to discuss two political parties. One, the APC, because it is our ruling party, right? And the party in charge of our security, our welfare, our well-being, our resources. And so we must constantly hold them to account. And we must constantly measure them. And we have held them to account, and we have measured them, and we have found them wanting. I also like to discuss my political party, the PDP. Simply because we're making promises to the Nigerian people about our capacity to deliver. We're pointing out to the Nigerian people about our deliverance in the past and how the PDP, successive PDP governments grew the economy and improved their lives, welfare and well-being. And we're showing them actual plans for what will be done, when it will be done, how it will be done. I'd rather have those discussions. And as much as possible, I avoid getting drawn into conversations about Labour Party. Yes, I see the obvious deficiencies. And like I've just pointed out, those deficiencies are obvious. And separate them from the PDP that has the ability to deliver. Listen, let me tell you something. There are 176,000 polling units or polling centers across the country. 176,000 polling units, 196,000 polling centers, I think, across the country. Election day, you need to have a minimum of one registered agent at every polling unit. That's roughly 200,000 people. You now need to have, you know, your backups, people who are canvassing, who are going across in the streets and calling people out to come out and vote. In Osun State, we had a minimum of 3 per polling center. 3. If you did the 3,000 thereabouts numbers, you know, of polling centers in Osun State, that easily gave you almost 10,000 people. Right? That structure, 200,000 strong, at a minimum across the country, if you do, according to the PDP's plans, of having maybe 4 or 5 agents across the country per polling center, you're looking at almost 1 million people. When we speak about structure, we're speaking on election day.
Yeah, but the question is, would those governors scuttle that arrangement in their states?
The governors don't come. No, that structure exists outside of the governors. It does. There are campaign councils in the states where the governors are unhappy. The PDP has campaign councils there that are actively campaigning today.
All right, let's. I think we're almost out of time, so let's just quickly touch on one final issue. We'll take some clips now from...
there was a clip I saw that I would like to address. Can I do that? It was on the screen.
Yeah, which one?
Something about the protests in Delta.
Yes, so let's just take a look at it. Let's take a look at it.
I'd like to address that.
Let's take a look at those clips now.
As we speak now, the government said they've met the pensioners halfway. How do you react?
Good. I don't know what they call halfway. Can 2.5 be halfway? Half of 55 billion. Okay? 2.5 billion is half, because that I thought mathematics. I don't know if that is Okowa'S mathematics. But 2.5 billion is half of 55 billion. Okowa should prove that. Because supposing that's the way we taught him, we wouldn't have paid the governor today.
Okay, the state government is also saying that it's not their responsibility.
It is their responsibility. They employed us. So tell them that. If they are not, let them come and face us. If they can tell you the media like that outside, tell them to come and face me and tell me that this is yes. Tell them to stop chasing shackles. He should come and pay us that. Our own money we contributed. We're not begging him to pay us money.
It's your personal money.
I'm telling you.
Your contribution.
Yes, it's our contribution.
Over the years.
Not begging Okowa.
This one at the protest, Okowa say don't pay now.
Yes, he has not paid us. He only released 2.5 billion.
Out of 55 billion.
Which is out of 55 billion. And that takes care of 2015 from January to August 2015. So as we speak, there is no money for other months and other years today. So count 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021.
So how have you been surviving all this while?
In fact, we have been surviving.
He's gone.
We have been surviving because we have been begging money. Touching firewood. We turn to beggars. After retiring as head teachers, we have been borrowing. No money to train our children. Some of our children are out of school. Some of them have finished. There is no job. So that is why we are here, begging the government.
All right, and we have those persons speaking there. We also have PENCOM saying only some states, including Delta, has been paying pensions. So let's hear yes, break it down.
First thing, my heart goes out to people like those in that clip and people who have not been paid their pensions and haven't received their benefits after years of service. My heart goes out to them. But there are a number of things that we must always be clear about. There was a pension law that existed in this country up until 2007. Right? In 2007, the PDP introduced the pension reforms with the passage of the Pensions Reform Act that introduced the contributory pension scheme. Right? And having introduced it, there was a certain amount of backdating. So, people now, all out of the blues, had entitlement by law that they previously didn't have. Now, the previous government, suddenly burdened by a lot of these obligations, left a significant amount of the obligations for Governor Ifeanyi Okowa. So, since coming into office in 2015, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa has had, along with his own obligations from 2015 to date, has had the obligations of clearing pensions that he inherited between 2007 and 2015. What nobody will ever mistakenly tell you is that their pensions due between 2015 and date have never been paid. Nobody will ever be able to tell you that. Why? Because their pensions due between 2015 and date have been paid up to date. It is the backlog that Governor Okowa has been clearing months on months between 2015 and date, and that he has committed that by May 28th, 2022 will be fully cleared. It is that backlog. 1. 2. Delta State is not owing pensioners. Local governments in Delta State are owing pensioners. So there are local government chairmen who haven't paid pension. There are local governments across the state who haven't paid pension. Governor Okowa, in realizing that we cannot leave people stranded, has assumed that responsibility. And from state coffers is defraying the costs. He's a man who inherited a problem. And rather than bicker about it, rather than moan about it, rather than complain about it in the manner and style of the APC, has simply, quietly, efficiently committed to fixing it. And is in the process of doing so.
All right, so
my appeal, two things are happening. We must know that certain things are happening. One of those things that are happening is that there are people who are funding these protests to, so to speak, to embarrass and I hate the use of this phrase, for a political agenda.
You don't think those protesters are genuine?
I will finish. They're people who are being funded, you know, for the purposes of pushing and promoting an agenda against Governor Okowa and making it appear as though he hasn't done or he hasn't performed well in office. There are those people who are doing that. I will still end it by saying we recognize that there are genuine agitations and that people ought to be paid. My father is a retired civil servant and for many years had a significant portion of his pensions that were not paid. And so I know what some of the pain can be. I know what some of the dissatisfaction can be. Be that as it may, the appeal to people is please understand, state the facts truthfully as they are. Because I can bet you that amongst a lot of people who are saying, oh, they are being owed pensions, they will not tell you the simple truth that since Governor Okowa came, their pensions have been paid up to date. That what Governor Okowa is clearing is a backlog that pre-existed his coming into office.
All right, that's fair enough. Thank you very much for coming and for clearing the air and bringing clarifications to some issues within the PDP. We hope to have you back sometime soon.
Always available.
To get some updates, especially you made a statement there that by 2023,
May 28, his commitment is that by May 28, 2023, hopefully, we believe the day before he assumes office as Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that those pensions would have been cleared.
All right, we'll get an update on that by the time, when that time comes. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that's all we can take on the Polity today. Do join us tomorrow for more discussions on the state of the nation and issues affecting the polity. Have a nice day. I'm Ahmed.